Sometimes I like figure out the minutes and stuff, so I was looking into it. But I just wonder about actually, but not with me.
Well, we're gonna deal
Yeah,
with that.
we're actually drafting that this week.
Good
Thank
question.
you for raising
Thank
it. Like,
Good on you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're like. Oh, right.
I think.
Because you have to have the scenes.
Or you took 920,000.
Michelle, I'm gonna back out and come back in because I didn't do something with my sound. Okay. Oh, no, it wasn't you. Okay, okay, it's fixed.
Hang on. No, I know.
Everything 2025.
I know, I've written it like 4 times, actually again, 2025, like
Yeah.
1,000 times.
Right. Did you have a good break?
I did. How
Good. It was fine.
Good.
Yeah, it was fine. A little on the quiet side.
Yeah.
That was all right.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. It worked.
And you felt like holiday, just like.
We're kind of homebodies. Yeah. Did you do anything exciting?
On the 16th, I went over to my grandparents. We had like a little family together, and then on.
All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order.
So it was okay. But it was pretty quiet, it was nice.
Yeah.
Aaron, you wanna do the pledge?
Ready and begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda.
I can make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as written.
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
There he is. Motion passes 5-0.
There's me.
Goes online.
Hi, Joe.
Next up is request for agenda modifications. Is there any request for modifications?
With Joe's need to depart. We may want to watch the time,
Yeah,
and if there are some votable items that we need to take care of. We can make a determination about,
yeah.
whether we shift those forward or not.
You
That's
got
the
it.
only.
Bug out at 8:15, Joe? I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, 8:15 or so.
Okay. We'll try to keep in line here and not hold you up.
I could go 8:20, 8:25. I have to go to the hospital and pick up my wife from work, so I don't want to make her wait too long.
All right, well, no, we don't want to make her wait. Any public comment?
No, that's
Nothing. Reports, student government report. Okay.
Anything exciting? We're back from break.
There you go. Association reports, PEA.
Hi, everyone. Hope you had a good break. Yeah, I think everybody's just trying to get back in the groove of being back at school after the break, and it's good. It's good to see students back and trying to keep everybody healthy too. That has been a big battle. For the most part, I think things are going well. We're getting ready to enter a bargaining session or season, I should say. And we're starting to prepare for that and have conversations with members and seeing what's important to them. And Susan and I have been meeting regularly, and still some safety issues that we're working on, and technology is just dragging us down. But that's pretty much where we're at right now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
Thanks.
OSEA. All right. School stuff, there's no report. Superintendent's report.
All right. I tried to angle it a little bit to be able
Oh,
to.
I just wasn't sure if he could see it or not.
I could overhear back into it.
Oh, okay.
So, wanted to be able to, as the Oregon School Boards Association sets aside January to honor unpaid elected volunteers who serve Oregon's school districts, 197 school boards, 19 education service district boards, and 17 community college boards. That we are in that mix, of wanting to honor and recognize the board members that we have here in Paloma. So the proclamation, I will read from the governor. Whereas Oregonians rely on public education to ensure a prosperous quality of life and strong economic health for Oregon. And whereas locally elected boards fulfill leadership roles and serve as the conduit through which teachers, parents, businesses, and communities demonstrate the care, creativity, and support that lead student achievement. And whereas public schools nurture and train diverse student populations to give students the knowledge, skills, and opportunities they need to succeed. And whereas board members build the framework that makes it possible for education organizations to teach Oregon's children. And whereas we thank the committed community members who serve on the boards of Oregon's 197 school districts, 19 education service districts, and 17 community colleges, and 7 public universities for their dedication to the education needs of Oregonians. Now therefore, I, Tina Kotek, Governor of the State of Oregon, hereby proclaim January 2025 to be School Board Recognition Month in Oregon and encourage all Oregonians to join in this observance. Not an easy job that everybody has sitting around this table. I think it would be important to give these folks a round of applause for the work that they do. The other thing to let people know is we're in the process of, we started that last year, thanks to Michelle, is as recognition for these individuals, they get to select a favorite book and write some things in it if they choose to. And that book is donated to a library in the school district to be able to add to that mix. And so it's just a nice touch to be able to say, here are some favorite things of some people that work hard for us to put in the libraries of our schools. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it a lot. And more of the books are forthcoming. The Paloma School District Academic Calendar Committee, we actually met today to continue our discussions. We will talk about that. It's later on our agenda. And we believe that we can either look at it and table it to a vote till February, but the group was pretty okay with saying if we wanted to vote it tonight, we could. And then we will come back around in early February to begin working on 26, 27. The idea will be that we always want to have 2 years of calendars out there. So in 25, 26, we'll start working on 27, 28, so that we can always have that extra year out. That's always been a struggle for me, as I've wanted to be that way, and it's just never come to fruition. So we'll look at that a little bit later. I talked last month a little bit about Senate Bill 5506, which is the $8.9 million the state put aside to provide stipends for special education, and the application specifics of what needed to happen and how those people were determined. And that was 75% of the employee time must be devoted to special education. The stipends are the same for all qualifying employees, regardless of whether they're licensed, administrative, classified, excuse me, regardless of their hours worked each day. So if I'm part-time, not full-time, the stipend is the stipend. And so those numbers were due to ODE on Monday, and the file we submit today. And I want to say we had 57 or 58 people on the list sent from Paloma. And so when you think about that and you think about $8.9 million for 197 school districts, if all, and ESDs, if all choose to participate, that if our numbers are at 57 or 58, there could be some very high numbers from some other districts. And so we should know by the time we meet again what that stipend amount will be, because what they're gonna do is take 8.9 million and divide it by whatever number they get from across the state, and that's gonna be the target that they're gonna send. So-
Joe and I came up with the difference between $7 and $11, which would be.
Yep, that was,
Right, probably.
it's a real hard one, just in terms of, you wonder how people are gonna feel. I put in all my time and all my work, and my stipend is very small. But we're doing what the state asked us to do, so. That we've continued our work with the Center for Educational Leadership. They have been here the last 2 days, working with our administrators, and we've brought in some teachers from some schools to be able to be part of group development. We will meet with them one more time in April, and at that time, we'll have conversations about what next year, this has been funded by LBL on our behalf. That if this will be something that will continue into the next year or not. This is our 3rd year with them, and we want to make sure that we can target their support and where we want to go, rather than repeating the same thing. So we're listening real close to what can be provided to be able to make that work or not. The LBL local service plan, you've seen in your packet the updated version, and that was gone through by committees and a number of groups from the ESD. Jennifer was a part of giving input about the financial side. Mark Neville was part of the technology side. So we've had input from a lot of different people, more or less to clean up the language to make it truly reflect what's happening. So the final draft in the packet is ready for us on our approval list tonight. I added on here district equity committees because I was at a meeting this morning, and then Kelsey and I talked about it this evening. To be able to say the reminder that in the 2021 legislative session, Senate Bill 732 was passed that talked about calling for an educational equity advisory committee in every district. And the implementation of those, I believe, Kelsey, correct me if I'm wrong, are September 2025. Okay. And so we've been talking about how those are to be implemented. Our district equity team has had some growing pains and struggles over the last couple of years. For a myriad of reasons. And so it's about reinventing, but it's also being able to understand what that means and what that looks like in terms of committee and what the law actually says. So we'll come back around with some additional information next month to be able to talk about the pros and the cons and how we might look to proceed and go from there. Referenced the PSD phone system, and part of that was to be able to do a shout out to our technology staff. The fact that lines weren't recognized on Monday morning for a short period of time was a little bit of a struggle, but they got that back up and running. And so the notion of over the course of the 2-week break, new phones were deployed across the entire district in every classroom, office, all the spaces that any room gets a phone. So they replaced all the handsets. They have to ensure the crossover to that backbone is in place. And they had to call for the 911 check for each handset to be able to make the verification. So it was a huge undertaking to be able to do that. And to have that all moved and taken care of in 2 weeks was quite a lift.
Amazing, yeah.
So. And then the other thing that the board is aware of was we had some underground water leakage at Philomath Elementary School. You notice when your water bill comes in that it's not good, and then you can put your ear to the pipe and hear. And so, facilities, Joey and facilities thought they had it sorted out and had a repair and a fix and discovered that there was still leaking happening. And so that prompted kind of a hurry up and get it done. And, based on their hard work, again, everything was completed and ready to go for Monday for students. The elementary school is communicated with to be able to say, your water's running, there's not gonna be a problem. You might have some exposed pipe in a couple of these areas and make your decisions accordingly. But it was all put together and done quite well. One of the things I realized they didn't put on there was, an update on, well, we put it in, no, we took it out of here, the safety committees. With the break, we're still working to make sure that we have the membership taken care of, but we're starting to get names. And when Nicole and I met yesterday, we talked about verifying, some specifics that got lost in 2 weeks, which is easy to do. And so, we anticipate getting membership together and starting to be able to make that happen real soon. And that's both sides of a safety committee. So we've talked about 2 and, are ready to run in that way. So, that's what I've got. Questions, comments?
All right, have anybody got questions?
So would the technology team have been on break over the break if they weren't doing the handsets, or would they have been working?
I talked to them because we talked about how they wanted to deploy. And we talked about winter break as being a time, and, they were down 1, at different stages. And so they typically had 3 people being able to be on it all the time, and they had, the Tuesday and Wednesday, so, the eve and the holiday in both weeks off.
Okay.
And so that's the other piece of it. It was done in really 3 days, 1 week, 3 days the next week. And everything put in.
Just wanted to make sure people didn't miss out on their.
No, because I
breaks.
said if we need to shuffle it and phase it in and do some different things, then we'll do it that way. And so we've talked about that since October, to be able to know what was happening. And, they were good with it and committed to it. And, that was one of the things that we made sure is don't work on the holidays, just make sure you take your time. And if you've got family plans, and we need to project this out later, we'll project it out. So, that was a known upfront.
Okay, financial report.
You can see in your packet that enrollment, we're still holding steady, at least based on the few days back after winter break. Haven't heard it since then. But it's still lower than what we anticipated. So we updated our estimate with the state. They won't be recalculating state school fund estimates until February or March, when the second period ADM comes in. So we won't know our adjustment until then. So we just have to be cautious. Our final audit documents are in. We've updated and sent actuals to ODE. Everything looks good. But the auditors couldn't come in January, so they'll be here next month to present the final audit reports.
Okay.
And then I have the budget preparation calendar in the packet for your approval. Hopefully I sent it out to everybody and I didn't hear too many conflicts. So we'll just hopefully go with that and it'll work and start on the finishing up 1 year, working in the current year and preparing for the next year, all in the same month. I think we just updated our estimate of membership and revenue for next year. Also, we had to have that in by this week. And so we predicted a slight decrease in enrollment going into next year, just based on birth rates and the size of the classes leaving versus the ones coming in. The same across the state. It's not unusual. I think the year we had an increase of enrollment was a bit of an anomaly for us. So I think that's all I have unless you have questions.
Well, the only question I had, you just answered, because I was gonna say, we've been running about 50 below from last year. And is that what we're gonna try to shoot for next year is what we have now, but it sounds like it's gonna be slightly lower than that.
I think we estimated about 20 lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any reason for that or just
Um,
because?
the classes that are leaving the high school
the senior class is bigger than the kindergarten and first grade classes that are moving up. We have a very small kindergarten group this year. And so the one next year, unless we allow more inter-district transfers or something for that group, I think it will be just as small. So we have a new private school that may be starting, and we don't know if it'll take a few of our students, so it's trying to be
Okay.
conservative on the enrollment side.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We could always change and boost, if that changes for us.
Right,
But the other thing that we don't want to get caught is predicting too high and then getting nailed big.
Well, yeah, you always want to be pretty conservative on that number.
looking at birth rates across the county, it's been declining for the last few years. Our kindergarten class just last year was quite large,
Yeah.
fairly unusual, I think.
Have there been, I know we said no, there did transfer been the list of, has there been people been turned away?
Not this year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we looked at, have people, has there been anybody on a waiting list or turned away? And no, we haven't. And then the question becomes, do we increase those numbers as we look at planning for,
Well, it doesn't sound like we need to, if nobody's been turned away.
right, but 25, 26, would we want to start the school year with allowing 15 in kinder instead of 10? I mean, but those are all part of the conversations that, we kind of tossed around.
Strategy and discussion, the board liaison assignments.
So, thank you. We had, the same sheet that I gave you last time filled in. And we talked about maintaining the schools or departments similar to what they were this year, because we're already well into and through. And we know that all board members are a part of the budget committee. We've got, the other ones, it's just making sure that we're good with, where folks are at and what their level of commitment should be. The safety committees is gonna be one that I wanna make sure that we know about. And the other one is going to be for our licensed staff negotiation to make sure that, the two people on there are still up for doing it, or if we need to shuffle things around. So, that's why we just wanted to put it back in front to be able to say, are we good with this, or are there some things that we need to change, or, how do we want to proceed in that one?
And Joe, I just texted it to you in case you don't have it in front of you.
No, I have it.
I figured you did, but just in case.
Yeah. No, sorry.
My only concerns, on here are in regard to, Rick and Joe and I. Our tenure on the school board potentially is up, partway through. Or I guess at the end of the year. And I just want to make sure that we don't, because when I joined the PEA negotiation committee, it was because Karen was no longer on the board. So I want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. I intend to run for the board again. Obviously, there's not a guarantee that I would be reelected, but I would hate to see a big vacancy occur. So that's my only concern when I look at this. If we were to be mid-negotiation and then to have to catch board members up on how to do the negotiating.
Okay, my question is there anybody that wants to join the PEA negotiations?
Can we just join for the purposes of observation?
Of what?
Observation,
You can't have three.
okay,
No, because if there's two board members actually
Right.
negotiating
right,
and you join for observation, then that makes three.
gotcha,
So that means anything that's,
Right.
tentatively agreed upon is
I got it.
agreed upon.
Yep.
So, we gotta be careful that there's only two board members,
Sure.
but you're more than welcome to,
Oh, no.
volunteer for something.
Oh, no, I wasn't doing that. No. No, don't misunderstand me.
And I think it's okay if we go in as long as, PEA is aware that there might be a switch on representation, and I
Right
think.
there.
But our goal would be.
And the
to
whole
be
negotiating
finished
committee.
by June 30 anyway.
That's the hope.
Yeah, that would be very nice, right?
Nicole's like,
That would
That'd be very
be,
surprising.
that would
Really?
be the hope.
That'd be- Yeah, that'd be very surprising.
I think we finished in July last time.
I don't think we signed off on it until.
No, we didn't. It was
No.
September.
Oh, that's
before we
right.
signed off
Yeah,
on
it
it.
was-
oh,
Which
It
is
was-
pretty
yeah.
long.
So, just something to be aware of.
Okay.
And again, factors are outside of our control.
Okay, well, we can always come
I've
back.
asked this before on this list. No problem with names are, still don't know what the expectations are, like where I'm with Blodgett Elementary and Bone Elementary.
Okay.
Great with that, but I still don't know what is expected of me. Or anybody on these lists in terms of role. I understand like the negotiation was what they're doing. City-based facilities, I've reached out to Joey and talked to him about stuff, but I just don't know. We get this list handed to us, and I still don't know what is expected.
I think the expectation is that we attend site council, which my understanding is a requirement.
Well, the middle school's got the site council.
I
And
think
the
other
others-
school is supposed to.
Right, and we've operated with the PTO kind of acting as at the elementary level. So I mean, we've kind of had groups within that be able to do that. So,
In the past, I think we've tried to, made the contact, whether it be through site council or whatever, at least, 2, 3, 4 times a year. And so that's what I've tried to do at the middle school is attend at least a few of the site councils. Actually this year I've only been to one so far, but I plan to try to do at least 2 or 3 more times before the end of the year. So, but yeah, you're right, they're not written down, and that
and I've got
maybe that's
myself a note.
maybe that's one of the things that we should be doing at our work session is saying, okay,
Yep.
the school that you are responsible for, you need to make, direct contact with them through either a staff meeting or a site council or something like that at least 3 times a year, or at least something like that. We need to come up with some sort of, so like you say, if one or more of us isn't on the board next year, then new incoming board members will know this is the way it is.
Ms. Joe? Any other comments on that? Okay, moving along, cell phone surveys.
We talked about these more in depth on Tuesday. To be able, and I want to try and share this, I can't see all of those there. It's not letting me share the Google Doc here.
It was up there,
There it is.
We could see it.
There it is, there it is. So, what we did really Tuesday and what I've been working on, because we surveyed parents, we surveyed staff, and we surveyed students with, some slightly different nuances between elementary, middle, and high. And so to give you an idea, I pulled up the parent, setup and response. And so we've got in here, this does a nice job of being able to say, here's the percentage and numbers of respondents representing each school. The next question was, does your child or children have a cell phone? Interesting that 48.5% was a yes, and 30% was a no. And the mixed was, maybe I have multiple children at multiple levels and my elementary student does not, but my middle schooler does. So could we have asked that question differently? Probably. But you know, you live and learn when you create those things. And the other thing that we've been looking back to is to be able to see where are most of the respondents. And so when we say 30% don't have cell phones, and I've said that to a couple of other people who have said, you are out of your ever-loving mind. Everybody at the high school or at the middle school has a cell phone. Well, that could be true. And so these answers could be coming from primarily our elementary family respondents. So that's what we're looking at too, to be able to see how do we break it down by level to take a look at anything different. Do you believe that cell phones have a positive or negative impact on student learning? 77.8% said negative. 22.2% said positive.
You might want to recount, that's pretty close.
Parents or teachers?
This is parents.
Okay.
And then we started getting into, do you believe that students should be allowed open access to their cell phones during class time? 72.8 were a resounding no. 8.2 were a yes. And then you get into a little bit of the not sure. And then the thing that I've been working on is the summarization of all these independent or individual comments that people have made as kind of one-offs, adding them in, because there's some really essential information in there. So for instance, a lot of people on the parent side said they need them for emergency use only. Can they please keep them on their person instead of putting them in those bags where the school locks them up? And so we were looking at that from the standpoint of seeing what the information is, but it's also about what is the reality. And safety is in a space that we've not lived through before. I mean, so we want to pay attention. The other part of it is, what do we need to do in terms of education for our parents, our staff, our students, to be able to take a look at where things will, where and how things will be implemented, that there are some certain things that may take us some time to be able to work through, and be able to teach. For example, there have been some people that said, my child needs to be able to have their phone, and have, they'll never go to the office to make a phone call if they need to get in touch with a parent. Okay, so how do we talk about that and work that out so it's not just a, are there some specific parameters around that, which is what we're working on right now. But these individual comments that different people have put in, depends upon the student's needs. It's up to the teacher. I don't believe students should have them within reason. I mean, so it's all over the board. Students with 504 plans on IEPs need to have accommodations if it's medically necessary. I mean, so all those kinds of things that we want to be able to take a look at. I've seen some different plans. So one of them was, especially at an elementary level, and sometimes at a middle school, I want to be able to text my kids during the course of the day for them to understand pickup plans at the end of the school day. And, you know, it goes from, parent, you need to call the office, and that's the education we're going to do, so that then the message gets delivered about pickup plans. And then I looked at another district's plan that said, they can have their cell phone between the last 2 periods of the day to pick up or to receive pickup plans. I mean, so they're kind of all over the, all over the board. And so those are the things that we wanted to take a look at in all the nuances. Under what conditions would you allow, if you allowed them in classrooms? Emergency only, none. I mean, so again, that was another one that we had to, that we're trying to pay real close attention to. Do you believe that students should be allowed open access to their cell phones during non-class time? That was a little bit more mixed in terms of, Should they have it at break at lunch? And some people said, yep, they should have it at break and lunch, and some other people said they need to talk face to face during lunchtime. That becomes important. Should there be designated cell phone free zones? Bathrooms, the library and the locker rooms were huge, in the answers here. During school time, what does your child or children use their cell phone to accomplish? Is it about communication? The second one down there, is it about entertainment, listening to music or playing games or watching videos? Is it about organization? Research, so accessing online information for school assignments, social media, health plan monitoring, I don't know. And then my child does not have a cell phone or a comparable device, and then all the individuals here. Do you set limits on your child or your children's cell phone use at home or at school? Yes, no, and there were some people that came and said, my child can only text home during the school day, they can't text anywhere else, or, I want it to remain on their person because they've got, GPS indicator, and I want to be able to know what's going on with that. And other people that talked about apps of, being able to know what students are into at any point in time on their cell phones. How can schools help students develop healthy relationships with technology? And so this is also what we're looking at to be able to say, what matters in there. Interesting was one of the comments was, if you need to, if you're going to require a cell phone policy, you need to also at the same time make sure that you're teaching students about digital citizenship and responsible use. And it was like spot on. That that becomes real essential to be able to do that. So then I wanted to get into a little bit about the staff to be able to see where that one was. Because you'll see where some of the differences live. So in the staff, you'll see, primary role, sorry about that. What percentage of students in your classes have cell phones at school, and the percentage of use during class time and break? So you look at phones in schools, this was a greater than 95%. Was that biggest one. Phone use in classrooms really varied. And again, we're looking at grade levels. So is this less than 20% specific to a K-5 grade band, or does it really cross the board? So I'm also finding places where we could have done a better job of asking questions. Do you believe that student cell phones have a positive or negative impact on student learning? 90.4 negative impact. And so, I mean, it's there, and there's no, it depends. It's yes, it's no. Again, do you believe students should be allowed open access to their cell phones during class time? A 74% resounding no. If you believe they should have them, under what conditions? What do you believe is intended purpose or use? So you can see again, communication and texting is big. If you have a cell phone, do you use it during class time? Interesting that the majority of people said no. There's a sometimes, and there's a small thing about yes, I do. And so we can look at that. Do you believe our students have a healthy relationship and appropriate boundaries with technology? Most say no, that the relationships aren't terribly healthy. Is there additional insight you would like to provide? So that was the staff version, and then I'll go to this was the high school primarily. We got a couple of odd ones in just as a matter of course, and you know, that's okay. We can take care of that. But you'll notice the interesting part of it. What percentage? Do you believe that cell phones have a positive or negative impact on your learning? 71.2%, it has a positive impact on my learning. And 28.8% said it has a negative impact on my learning. So you can see we got some difference of opinion.
And that was the students that.
This was like. Yep. Do you believe that students should be allowed open access to their cell phones during class time? Interesting, though, it was a 55.9% that said yes. But then you had a 28% that said, I'm not sure. And so, it was interesting to watch those numbers shift. If you believe under what conditions, and medical was a big one that came up, emergency, all through there. If you have a cell phone, do you use during class time? Sometimes a little bit of yes, some no. Again, same kinds of questions that we would ask, what you're using for. And there was a high percentage in research from the students and a high percentage in texting or talking as far as communication.
Well, we're on to something. The students said they need those, but you could just teach on my phone, get rid of all the instructors whatsoever. They can all just sit there.
So, and that was there.
Was there a question to the staff, are phones disruptive during class?
It wasn't phrased
It
exactly
was
in
said like
that
negative
way.
and positive impact on learning, but just a simple disruptiveness.
Yeah.
Are they?
And I think it was, are they an advantage? And of course, Sandy and I have listening session from here that basically said, yeah, they're an annoyance. And I think I paraphrased that right.
Yeah.
I notice, I have noticed here at the high school that there are some teachers who have clamped down a little bit on what they're doing. And, some of, or the high school bought those shoe holder pouches for every teacher, and some of them are using them. And it's interesting that there's at least one classroom where students have repeatedly left them and forgotten them in the shoe holder and come back 2 periods later and pick them up. So that tells you kind of a level of importance. So where we're just getting through all the subtle nuances because we want it to be a package, but we also want to make sure that we are responding to, we ask people for information. By golly, we better respond to it and respond to it now.
Right.
And so our intention is, based on what we've looked at in the summation so far, is a couple of things that we've looked at. We're gonna look at putting some restrictions in classrooms that really says, from a district perspective, the phones will be banned in classrooms with a couple of exceptions. If I have an activity in my classroom where we're using a QR code where we need our phones, and it's a classroom structured activity, that's at my teacher's discretion to be able to do that. So that would be an example there. And then we know there's gonna be some individuals that will have worked out agreements or accommodations to be able to have a signal or a nod or whatever that says, I really need to go out and use my phone. But I mean, that's gonna be situation specific and how we grow that. And so we're getting the finalization of what the plan would read and what the consequences are. And we also talked a lot about the differences that could be between an elementary level and a middle school, high school level. That the expectations and the availability will probably look different a little bit in both of those settings. And so we're talking about what does that look like and how does that play out and what should that be? So that's a big part of our next week's conversation with the administrators to be able to take a look at what is the language of the plan. What are the educational components we need to be aware of? Are there places where we need to gather more information? And what are the consequences for because we really want our administrators too invested in, helping and supporting and implementing consequence, because it's a real struggle if you get sent to the office for use of a cell phone in one classroom and, student gets their phone back right away all the time. And, how do we make sure that we can deal with that appropriately and have the support for our teaching core, to be able to do that? And how do we listen? Our intent is to look at, beginning implementation with the new semester, so at the half year, the end of the month. And we'll see where we end up next week in terms of, lining out everything to be able to share with students, to be able to share with staff. Looking at it that way. We don't plan at this point about any pouches or anything like that. We feel like we've been quite successful in our schools to be able to handle the mantra of if we see them or hear them, it's a problem. But the notion of being able to have students have to keep them in a locker or somewhere, we don't feel like we need to go that far, in terms of the history of what we've had within our district and the respect and responsibility there.
Not at this time.
Not at this time. We also know that there could be some bills that come forward in the legislative session. That there are some people in the state who have alluded to a bell-to-bell ban. And who knows what that looks like. And so we're listening for that too, but really wanted to be able to say, where do we need to go and what do we need to do? And it's always with the caveat of watching and monitoring, because there are things when you make changes, you're going, yeah, we thought that was a good idea, but that really was the worst thing that we could have ever done. And being able to listen for feedback. How does this impact me? How does this impact my classroom and what happens there? So there will be more information to be able to be shared. We just felt like we needed to get in that first week back really into the weeds of the data to be able to make sure that we could know, instead of just saying, sorry, no, you can't have them anymore, that there's a picture that is able to play out in whole.
Did anybody express interest in knowing the results of the survey? Any parents or teachers?
People would like to know, and we will share.
Yeah, not just the result, but I mean, not just the end result, but I wondered if people were interested in the data that was collected
Oh, I'm
to make
sure.
those decisions.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
And there's a way to do that.
Yeah, we can, that's part of what we're writing up about the plan, is to be able to say, how did we arrive at these?
Okay,
And what are the things that informed us in this way?
sure.
Because we know we've got some people that are very pro cell phone,
Mhm.
and they could be pretty angry. And it's, where do you deal, one of the things, for example, that came up was, students can have their phones in a classroom, and this was most specific to middle school, high school, if the teacher's not actively teaching. When is that?
Yeah.
It reminds me of a friend of mine who was a long-term kindergarten teacher who had a principal come into her room one day, and all of the students were sitting on the floor doing something. And the principal, this was years ago, by the way, I'm old, so I hope I wouldn't see anything like that now. The principal walked into the classroom and said, I'll come back sometime when you're teaching. That just about threw me off my rocker. And so, but part of that is the education of what does it mean to teach a class, and how difficult is it to be able to manage those nuances, and what are we really looking at? So yes, that will be a part of the puzzle.
Okay.
And a 2 week, like I said, a 2 week break just didn't help in the middle of it all,
Mhm.
and had hoped to have all of this ready for tonight. And we just needed time with the information to be able to say, nobody, especially the students, and we asked for their input too, are gonna say, well, you didn't listen to us.
Right.
We told you that cell phones are a help in the classroom. And so want to make sure we can go through that data to be able to take a look at why they think and how that plays together.
Good.
So that's where we are right now.
Good.
Questions, comments, concerns?
I have like a little comment.
Please.
I also know like a lot of students that are also pretty annoyed with other students being on their cell phone like all the time. Cause like some students don't even like turn their volume down or brightness down, so it's just like in the middle of class, it's just like super annoying to hear like an obnoxious like song playing or something, you know, it's like, and that's pretty distracting and it kind of
Yep.
takes you out of the element and kind of frustrating.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Thank you. And that's, what I mean, I want to be able to get back to our staff, to our students, to our parents, but especially this, I mean, we asked for input from all these places. People deserve to hear what the results of their input,
Yep. and
Is
it's like,
our-
Yeah,
whichever word I'm supposed to pick.
results are.
If everybody had these, it wouldn't be a problem.
Back to the flip.
I know, my friends and I were pretty fast texting on this.
Question.
Yeah.
You have, what we do in our classroom, in our sped classroom, is that if it becomes a distraction, they're sitting there going like this, listening, because some of the kids need music or, you know. We give them a timeout. They have to set aside, and if they need to make a call or anything, oh, look at this, there's a phone right here.
Yeah.
And they don't have to go to the office, because sometimes the office does cause anxiety. And teaching them and how to use a phone, and how to answer a phone. And so I don't know, is that even a possibility?
Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about, is what are the nuances? And when we talk about consequence, what does that look like and what does that mean? And we realize that we do have some kids that have medical needs, but we also have some students who they have either in a 504 plan, a safety plan, or an IEP, information that talks about where they can or cannot feel successful in that. And I did have a parent contact me to be able to talk about their child, to say, my child's never gonna come to the office to make a phone call. And so for me, part of that, just in thinking about it, was, okay, how do we work on being able to potentially gradually teach this student how to feel comfortable doing that? But it's not just a sorry, not from now, or because it's part of a plan as an accommodation. I know that my signal in my classroom to my teacher is gonna be thumbs up or whatever we decide on. And that means that we know together, I need to step outside my classroom and this is my contact I need to make with my parent. And so it's how do we recognize those kinds of things with an appropriate plan in place. So we're really trying to not get to the place of they're gone, that's it, we're not gonna explain why, but it's, all the input is appropriate. So thank you, I appreciate that.
With that, it's also education for the parent.
Yes,
Like if you say you have your phone at lunchtimes for pickup instructions, the parent should text the kid at that time, not 9:30 or whatever time. Part of that just goes back to the parent needs to be responsible for the kid as well.
Well, ideally, that would be decided before they get to school that day, right? I know.
but it's, you know, it's
In a
interesting because
real
it tells
world.
us where we are as a, from some people about it as a texting society.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just, that's the way we communicate
And we
and
used to pass notes in school.
so, you know, it's just, it's interesting to be able to listen. You know, I always use the excuse of being able to say, I got my teaching credential when God was a kid. And being as old as I am, there are things that I learned and believe in. It's like, how do I keep myself moving into the 21st century? And not ignore the things that I need to be listening to.
Right.
In a whole lot of different modalities. And so that's been interesting.
I appreciate that you said that. That's,
Yeah.
Take care of that then.
Yep.
All right, I think we're gonna skip through this for a little bit here. The 19th Street construction and a proposed calendar year for 25-26. And the board work session agenda, because it's 7:56 and Joe's gonna have to leave about 8:15 or so, so.
Thank you.
We'll go into the discussion and action items so that Joe can participate in that. First one is OSBA board voting. That was a malfunction on my part last month. We were good by doing this up until the time that we did not state each individual how they voted. It was okay to do this, pass it to Michelle so she could record it, but we needed to, at the same time, state how each of us voted. So at this point in time, we're gonna do that, and I'll start out by, OSBA Board of Directors, position 10, I voted for Clyde Rude. OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 10, Jason Curtis. Resolution 1, amends OSBA dues schedule, I voted yes. Resolution 2, creates OSBA Pride Caucus and designated seat on the OSBA Board and LPC, which is the Legislative Policy Committee, for people who don't know. No. Resolution 3, adopts proposed amendments to the OSBA bylaws, I voted yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do I need to read the whole thing again? If we just get in order, right?
Well, just read the, like the OSBA
OSBA
Board.
Board of Directors, position 10, I voted Clyde. OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 10, Jason Curtis. Resolution 1. Amends OSBA dues, yes. Resolution 2, creates OSBA Pride Caucus, voted no. Resolution 3, adopt proposed amendments to OSBA bylaws, yes.
Okay. OSBA Board of Directors, position 10, I voted for LaHooey White Bear. OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 10, Jason Curtis. Resolution 1, I voted yes. Resolution 2, I voted yes. And resolution 3, I voted yes.
OSBA Board of Directors, I voted for LaHooey White Bear. OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, I abstained. Resolution 1, amends OSBA due schedule, I voted yes. Resolution 2, creates the OSB Pride Caucus and designated seat on the OSBA Board and LPC, I voted no. Resolution 3, adopts proposed amendments to OSBA bylaws, I voted yes.
Good.
I think so.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
go ahead, Joe.
Position 10, OSBA Board, I voted for LaHooey White Bear. OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 10, I voted for Jason Curtis. Resolution 1, yes. Resolution 2, yes. Resolution 3, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody. I hope that puts us back in good graces with everybody now. But like I said, we were fine to do it on paper and send it to Michelle. It's just that we didn't state how each of us individually voted, so.
Yeah, I had never heard that you couldn't have a secret vote on a board. We have to any vote has to be, our individual votes have to be publicized.
Yeah. Well, I'm aware of that now.
Yeah, we know
Hopefully
now.
won't mess up again. Approval of the budget calendar.
If you are.
So
open
is there
to
any
hearing a
question? Huh?
motion- If you're open to hearing motion,
Yeah,
I move that we approve the budget calendar as presented in our packet.
And I'll second that.
okay, been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Second reading policies. Okay, I guess we can do all of these at one time. I did have some questions on some of them, but they can be answered while we're doing them. Is that legit to do them all at one time?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
so do I have a motion?
Also move, since I'm part of the policy committee, I will move that we accept these as a group.
I will second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Discussion?
I have one little thing.
Yeah.
On the communicable diseases thing, I just want a clarification. Under restrictable diseases, and I can't tell you what page that's on, but I might find it scrolling. It says if the disease is reportable, blah, 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 you can, by the superintendent or designees, sorry, may report to local health department. In my background with veterinary medicine, if it's reportable, it will be reported. In this, the will be was struck out and the may be was substituted. And I was just curious why we would give an option to not report to the health department if there's a communicable disease.
Is that the AR or the policy?
I don't know.
Oh,
It was on here.
well, I was trying to find it in the policy.
It was in our packet.
Well, I Sandy?
I'm sorry, Rick, I
Well,
said,
whether it is the policy or the AR, which the AR, the board doesn't have to approve, I think it's a worthy question.
Well, yeah,
here it is. It's on page, I don't know what page it's on. It says end of policy at the bottom of
Is it
it.
the AR or just the policy?
You tell me.
It's the policy.
Okay.
okay.
So it says in cases where a restrictable or
Oh,
reportable
okay.
disease is diagnosed and confirmed for a student, the administrator may. It's crossed out, it's struck through on will, may inform employees with a legitimate educational interest, and then there were other parts of it too. We may report it to the health department. I don't think that should be optional.
So I'm guessing that is in regard to HIPAA
Yeah.
law, because that is medical record and the school cannot release a student's medical record
And I don't,
except in certain circumstances, which is
Sure.
why it would have to be in May.
and I get that, but do we have to identify said student when we report a communicable disease? I don't think we have
To
to.
the employees, yes,
No,
because
to the
they would
health
know,
department.
but this is employees.
Yeah, but I went past that too, the one for the health department. I understand what you're saying.
I can understand reporting to the health department.
Mhm.
Okay, because that phrase said it too, may be reported to the local health department. May be reported to local health department. And I think it should be, and I don't think we have to disclose that we have student A named blah, 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 that has this. I mean, and I'm coming from the veterinary medicine world, not this world. But we never had to identify anything except to tell them, yes, we've had one diagnosed with this. And you need to know because it's, it's like the bird flu. It's like you want to know where it's at. So for communicable diseases, I think the health department should know where it's at. And I don't know, do we have to disclose personal information? I don't know that we do. When we're reporting a communicable disease to the health department, I don't know that
And
we
I
have to
don't see
do
that in the policy.
identifying. I will screenshot it and send it to you when I find it again.
Okay,
Because I see the
So
one
anyway,
where,
that
You
was
wanna
my
take-
only
You
thing.
wanna take this policy out for this time until we? I mean, I'm not on the policy committee, so
I'm
Joe, did
just,
you have a comment?
I was just saying that there in the policy, I see where it says the administrator may inform employees with a legitimate
Right.
educational
right,
interest. I'm trying to find where it says may report it to the health department, and I'm still not seeing it.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'll have to look and let you guys know. It's just, I was just wanting clarification as to why we wouldn't report it to the health department. That's all. It's under restrictable diseases.
If the disease is reportable, it's in the AR.
Oh,
The
okay.
administrator or designate may report the occurrence to the local health department.
Okay,
Again, most of the language changes in both of these this policy and this AR were in regard to legal changes.
Okay.
With the AR or the OAR.
okay,
I'm guessing that is why it has been changed.
gotcha. That's good to know.
Because again, that still falls under HIPAA, even if it's sharing it with the local health department.
Sure.
Because the local health department does not have a legal reason to access someone's medical record without their permission.
Understood. Understood. I would just, like I said, in the veterinary world, we didn't have to necessarily provide.
Yeah, animals don't have legal.
Actually, there's
record
HIPAA there
protection in
too.
Oregon.
Not like people,
There's
but there's
HIPAA
HIPAA there
everywhere.
too. Yeah. But we can report it without saying who the dog was or who the cat was. You know? So I was just clarifying. I
So
wanted to know it was why and not will.
Or-
May and not will.
are we okay with leaving this policy in then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
you have anything else?
Mhm.
Okay, my thing is on the first one, non-discrimination and civil rights. That sounds like a full-time job for somebody. with everything that they have to do according to policy and what they have to know and everything else. I mean, and then we're pushing it over on an administrator who's already got things to do.
Yep.
I'm a little concerned about time,
Right, and a lot of this
you know,
came about as the recent changes, in civil rights law.
yeah, well,
But yeah,
I understand that, but still,
I,
the person has to have enough time to devote to doing the job properly.
Absolutely.
Can't just kind of skim through it and miss a bunch of stuff. And then if they do, then the district's hung out to dry because the district's not doing their job.
Yep.
I mean, that's my concern with it is.
oh, I hear you.
Somebody's gonna be stretched too thin and not be able to do the job properly. So is there,
Right now, Garth has been our person to go through the training,
yeah,
and be able to act in that role in terms of our civil rights.
yeah, I seen that in the
Yeah.
policy, but I just wanna make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to something that
Yep.
could happen
Good
down the road.
question.
Well, I
Isn't
think
that
this,
what
this
legal
policy,
team
oh,
is for?
right.
Isn't that what?
For what a legal team is for? I mean, is that would fall under a lawyer or legal?
Not the civil rights coordinator.
Yeah, it's civil rights coordinator and it's one of the administrators in the district who I guess would.
It was Susan until this year, though.
Yeah,
That-
well, but that's what we're trying to do is take stuff off her plate.
I
and-
know.
and So that she
So we
has
have to move
time.
in the right direction, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Joe, did you have a question?
I was just saying this was one of the required policies, I'm pretty sure. So this, we don't really have a
Absolutely.
choice. We have
Oh,
to implement this.
I'm not saying that we not gonna have this policy. What I'm saying is that we need to make sure that the person who is the designated coordinator has the time to actually do the job.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is
So,
not under our purview, but Susan can power through that, I believe.
but the policies are, and if we approve a policy that there's no way that the person can do that, then it comes back to us. It's my view of that. Is that we're doing something, we're approving a policy that can't be, done in an appropriate manner.
And just to clarify, whether or not we pass this policy, we still have to do this.
Oh, I know that, but
It's one of those things, it's like,
it sounds like
we support as
missing
best
my-
we can.
concern is that the person who is the coordinator has the time to do it
Yeah.
properly.
Yep.
So, and then immunizations, I don't know. I'll pull it up here.
I looked at that too.
Huh?
I looked at that too.
Well, I have a problem with, the name of it, immunizations, physical examination, vision screening / eye exam and dental screenings.
Right.
Okay, you take out all the language for physical examination. So why is that still in the title of it? You take out all of the vision screening and eye examination language and the dental screening. So why are we leaving those things in the title of it when it's basically just immunization? And you have a little bit of school sports participation.
And the physical requirements
And-
there.
Yeah. So I would think that we would want to change the name of it to represent what the policy actually talks about and pertains to.
Makes sense.
We could ask.
Joe, do you have a comment on that?
Well, it's one of those things where, I mean, when we went through school, this was always something. You go in for your eye exam, in elementary school, you check to see if you need glasses. You go in for your dental check to see if you need to visit the dentist, all that. People, if they're looking for that in the policies, the title would tell them, okay, look here, in the policy, there's nothing about vision anymore. Well, okay, well, I guess vision isn't required. But at least that's the title would at least bring them there and they would know there's no place else to look. That's the only reason I can think. But yeah, I get your point. There's really the OSBA, I don't know, because of maybe from the legislature or whatever, I don't remember specifically, but they removed some of those requirements from schools having to do those checks, those screenings.
Okay, but
We can
I,
ask about naming conventions too, to see if there's any magic that OSBA's got or not.
yeah, but I mean, I just found it kind of weird that they would
Yeah,
leave those in the title and cross them all out down below, so.
But I see Joe's point that it gives them some ways to look.
Well, yeah, I do
reference.
too, but that's why I'm asking the question of, why is it in there?
Sure, sure.
And then the next one is,
oh, pediculosis,
yeah, that's it.
got it.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully you don't. get
Headlights.
Well, no, but my question is, how do you stop the spread of it? I
If
mean,
everyone stays at school.
well, yeah, I mean, you can't send anybody home if they're found to have it. But how do you stop the spread of it into kids who don't have it if you gotta leave the other kids in school? I mean, that's my question concerning that policy.
Well, that's been the rule for years.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean that it's right.
the way that we've
Well,
handled.
I'm just saying, the schools have been
Yeah, the
dealing
way
with,
that
like, we've
we've
been dealing
handled
with it.
that is, there are some students for whom, we wash their hair. That's when our family support liaison will reach out to families and help with, laundry, as well as, hair care and things like that. Because if we don't get rid of something in a home, then it's gonna continue to move.
Oh, yeah.
So, we've washed coats and clothes, yeah, we know we can't exclude those students. And so it's kind of then what do we have in our arsenal to be able to do something to help?
Okay.
Yeah, it's I think that's, head lice treatment in, treatment packets are, in every health room across the district. And, I think our family support liaison, has multiple boxes that she travels with often. And I've seen her at many a laundromat trying to, help take care of things.
Yeah, well, I know from having previous kids in the district that
Oh, yeah.
long, thick hair and, they come home with it and then you try to eradicate it. And you think you got it, and then the next thing you know is they bring more home and it's just like, it's a never, and it's very expensive. Whenever
Yep.
you're doing that, so. I just,
Well, I'm trying to think back to when that all changed. Because it used to be you sent kids home and
Oh,
they
yeah.
stayed at home.
well, in
I think it's been
2019,
5 years,
the
6 years.
policy was adopted that you did send them home, I
Yeah,
believe is what I
okay, so
read.
if that was true in 2019, I remember when that changed, it was kind of like, oh, Lord.
Yeah,
Well, and this policy, it was adopted, the old language was adopted in 2019.
it happened
And-
sometime right before that,
I think so.
Yeah, but then this new language is being adopted now, so, in 2019, it was still the other way, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, that was my question is how do we stop the spread? I mean, that's, other
Lice
than that, I don't
free,
have any,
The best brand out
We
there.
throw money at it.
yeah, but that was the only things that
No,
I
I
had.
get it. I get it.
So,
Gas me
okay,
back.
well, is there any more questions?
I don't know.
All right, we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor of adopting all the policies that are listed here?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. And thanks for putting up with me on my question.
No, it's all good.
I have to too.
Lights up there.
Oh, yeah.
And I apologize to everyone who's itchy now.
Oh, I just-
LBL ESD local service plan.
And that was in
Susan.
your packet. It's something that we, have a requirement to approve or not every year. And then we sit with the ESD and make determinations about which of those services we take advantage of, especially in the tier 2 side. And that's already in there for us. I took out all the other district pages and put in ours. And what we spent most of our time on this year was making sure that the language of the service really was indicative of what the service was. So for instance, in technology, they had some language in there about things they don't do anymore. And so it was kind of like if you have a low voltage technician, which I think they took out, but if that's something they had for a while, what does that person do and what's the scope of that? Or, if we're talking about, support for a student information system, what does that really mean? If you're talking about cybersecurity, give us some information about what you're talking about in cybersecurity. So it was a way of trying to clean up the language, so it would be more understandable. So that's really the essence of the big workload that was done. And, the rest of things, we've had conversations about, where we put money. There's one of the financial components right now that we're looking at. Jennifer, can you help me? The tier one
Or Infinite Visions,
for Infinite Visions.
or Forecast 5 and In Touch.
Well, all of the above if they're tier one.
They're all financial services.
Yep. And so we're talking about if we don't maintain some of those services, what happens? And so the conversation right now is about what would replace. But we've already been told that if those things come out of tier one, which tier one means in the ESD's world, that every district commits to putting money into it, whether you use it or not, but most people will use those things. That the money still comes to us, they would shuffle it for that year into a tier two unless they determined there was another higher priority in their tier one. And so we're aware if there's a couple of things that may shift based on those financial parts, but it won't take money away from us of what our allocation is from the ESD.
So what, if any, major changes from last year to this year are in this?
Nothing really different in terms of actions and activities. It was just some language edits.
Okay,
We're gonna see less in, we'll see a move of some of the high needs. Kelsey, I'm gonna look to you, the high needs disability information. Some of what is paid out of the high disability grant is being shuffled and offered in some different ways. And so we're gonna see that instead of in a grant, we may see some of that in the local service plan as something that's a possibility, especially in a tier two. But beyond that, everything else was just language cleanup. Is that accurate from what you recall?
Yeah, well, we have the severe disabilities and then that money comes through the ESD. And so, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
So do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the LDL ESD local service plan for 2025 through 2027 as presented in our packet.
Okay,
I'll second.
moved and seconded. We do. We jumped in there.
I
in front of
think
Joe.
Ryan's
Video.
just a little bit sooner.
Call it Joe, it's fine.
You can give it to Ryan, I don't care.
All right, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The resolution 24-2502. That's back up.
And this I shared with you, and this is really,
Oh, it's the ice thing.
let me stop sharing that and get to the other one.
Did everybody read this? Okay.
I did not remember which one.
Well, so allowing ice and, you know,
Oh, okay, with that.
yeah.
We
Customs
had
enforcement.
conversation about this in 2016, 2017. And at that point, there were some districts that crafted resolutions. We looked to LBL, or excuse me, to OSBA to be able to see about policy, of which they don't have one. They're working on it. But we wanted to be real clear to reiterate really what we've been doing for years. And so it's really not new, but it puts things back in perspective. We know that there is a potential for there to be big hue and cry in a lot of places to be able to deport undocumented individuals. And in essence, what this is saying is, you're not coming into our schools, and randomly asking questions. And so it just restates where we've been, that our commitment is to providing that positive, supportive, and safe learning environment for all of our students. The potential impact of immigration enforcement activities on students, families, and staff. And that's not just those students that might be undocumented or those families that are undocumented. You get uniformed people in the schools, and it disrupts a lot. Whereas the district desires to balance the need for public safety with the protection of the rights of all individuals. And so it really goes through the notice requirement, in terms of any official must first notify the superintendent or the superintendent's designee. And we've listed in the staff training document that I'll pull up, is Kelsey Gradanis, our student services coordinator. That they gotta come through one of us. And in person of their intent, such notice must be provided with adequate notice to allow superintendent to consult with legal counsel and take necessary steps to ensure the emotional and physical safety of students and staff. Superintendent or superintendent's designee is authorized to request identification from any ICE official seeking access to district property, inquiring about the purpose of the visit, and reviewing the legal authority for the requested entry. So it's not about, we're trying to skirt around the law. We just want to make sure that we've got the right way of being able to do that. Then the written legal authority and the exceptions. So that's the intent. What I wanted to do was make it into the formality of a resolution. I looked for one, if we would have done one back in 2016-17, which we didn't. And, but we know that we talked about it, and it was, kind of all over the place. Why did I bring that one back up? So then we did, what will come forward if this is an approved, resolution. Thank you. God. So the key things for staff and supporting students, it's really about saying, staff in our schools know that you don't have to take somebody into your school. You don't need to answer their questions. You've got Kelsey and I that are the gatekeepers in being able to do that. And so the notion of being able to just remind, after 2016-17, when the discussions happened, we didn't have an issue. So we talked about it, we set specifics in place, and we never had to implement or use. But the nice part is being able to say, we've got now information that we will share with staff at staff meetings or on a Friday professional learning in just a quick period of time to reassure our staff too of kind of where things are. And so we wanted to bring this forward in full transparency of recognizing all our students, all our staff, and really being transparent too with our families to be able to say, we've got you and your kids, and are going to do right by them.
Okay.
I will move we approve these.
What was that, Joe?
I was just gonna make the motion to approve.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thanks, Joe.
I'll second that.
All right, been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess Joe's up. Yep, there he is. Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Say bye, Joe, go get your wife.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take off now. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
right,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Right,
Thank you.
See you next week, I guess.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay.
For your work on that, Susan.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
important.
You're welcome. That
Cause
was-
I do remember having that discussion years ago, but I don't think there was ever anything. It was just kind of a discussion and that was about it. So we'll go back up on the agenda to strategy and discussion, the 9th Street construction, or 19th Street construction.
Yeah, I've got to give credit to Ken Pellet from Mid Valley Gravel for being one of the most awesome communicators with us through this whole thing. In fact, he got back to me today, with additional information about when the night work starts, because I put stuff out to staff and families. That talked about the night work beginning this Sunday. And so today he sent me the information that said we're gonna close, I'll put this out in communication because I'm gonna get it backwards, that they're gonna work on, from 7 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning, the stretch between Applegate and, Maine on 19th. We thought that Maine would be closed. Maine will not get closed. The intersection will stay open. So we're still planning and talking to athletic teams and things like that about if you're here in a contest and you get out after 7 o'clock at night, how do you exit without being able to get caught in the roadway construction?
Right.
So you just won't be able to turn onto or off of, or you won't be able to turn onto 19th
Right.
where that area is. So you'd have to go down a block or two and cut around.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're leaving Main Street open makes a huge difference in what they're talking about.
19th and Applegate, is that intersection gonna be open too? Or is that gonna be closed?
The 19th and Applegate, they're just working on the, what did he say? I'll have to go back, I question that one.
Okay,
Because I'll go back and see that, because I want to say that it's just
just between the streets.
between the streets, that's where they're
Not the
working.
intersection.
But I'll ask the question
Okay.
before I put out the communication.
All right,
That's a great question.
yeah. Well, I don't wanna get people thinking that Applegate's gonna be open and then they drive down there and find out that it's closed.
And then the plan was to do work, on the access road to Clemens Primary School over winter break. And if you've driven by Clemens Primary School, all the pipes and everything are still sitting on the grass. So they didn't get to that piece of it.
Yeah,
And so, again, Mid Valley Gravel has said we will help you when we get to that space, figure out how we want to do that, because that will change pickup patterns more so than they are right now.
no, kudos to Kenny Pellet, with Mid Valley, worked with him before, known him since we were a long time in school. He was from Alsea. We had mutual friends, and so I've known him for a long time, stand-up guy. Great the way that he's worked with this project and the 16th Street project. And working with the district on some things that were a little slight faux pas down there, but, in the same breath, I mean, I think that the city needs to step up and, understand that they need to communicate better with the district. In the things that are going on, because I mean, this is totally blindsided, and they can't say, well, geez, we just kind of forgot about it for a little while. They've had it in their budget, they've known about what the project was gonna be, and everything, and then, come to find out, it was horrible for the district for traffic patterns and everything else, picking up, dropping off, and it was just dumped on us all of a sudden one day, and, like, wow, So I think that, the city needs to step up, and, whoever down there, whether it's their facilities or manager or whoever, and, make it a point to communicate with the district at least, and if not the other citizens in the city, that we're gonna be doing things that's gonna disrupt you. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion. It's not a board opinion. That's just my personal opinion that it was handled very poorly on that end of things.
My understanding is that part of 19th Street is county road,
19th is county,
the whole
The-
street.
down on the
Oh.
south end of, now right up by Applegate to Maine, I don't know if that's city or
Okay,
county, but the other end of it, I know is county,
There's like
down
one,
past the
one
school.
block that's the
Oh.
city and the
Well,
rest
I
of
don't
it's
know,
county,
that's what I
right?
said, I don't
Yeah,
know.
something
Yeah,
like that.
I remember it was something weird.
Yeah, it's, Yeah, it's something, I think that's what I remember hearing is just a short section of it is city, then the rest of it is county owned.
So perhaps the county should have communicated as well.
Well, but it's
The
a city project.
The city, it's a
It's a
city's
city
project
project.
because
It's a city project.
it's water and sewer,
Okay,
connected in those places. 'cause
Yeah.
that's-
okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
The
somebody
and
should have
the
told
county
us.
and
They both failed us.
My first inquiry the morning we heard was to the city to say, who do I need to contact in the county?
Right.
And they said, oh, this is a city project
Gotcha.
and here's the connections and contacts. So,
Gotcha.
that's how I knew that it was something a little different. And, bless Mid Valley Gravel, Ken came in that afternoon at 2:00 and sat with us in my office, to go through information. So the board is aware I've communicated with the city via letter,
yeah,
about some of our concerns and, our need to be able to be committed to working together. And that was echoed back that, yes, we do need to be able to work together and, be partners with one another.
Absolutely.
and another positive that I'll just throw out on this is it's nice to have the local company working on the project that will communicate with us. Cause if it's a larger conglomerate out of the Portland area or different part of the state,
Right.
you're not gonna get that communication that we got from Mid Valley Gravel.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
that's another plus.
And so all those, information sheets that you send to the staff and, are those gonna be changing now because of that?
We'll only put out the night work,
Okay.
to be able to look at any changes for those people that are from that 7:00 in the
Okay.
evening to 6:00 in the morning. The only changes we foresee at this point with the traffic pattern for students and pickup and things like that will be when they work on that access road at Clemens Primary.
Right.
Because that's how people access
Yeah.
pickup at Clemens Primary. And so we know, that's where students are walking from the middle school to be able to cross over to Cedar, at Cedar, and walk over to the elementary school or walk that direction. So there will be change during that time. And as we know that would be, while they're working on that piece, that would be the change. And then, of course, when they're all done, it's reminding people that the fire lane isn't open 24/7 anymore and, things like that.
Okay.
Thanks, Linda. Moving right along, the proposed school year calendar, 25-26.
Yeah, we met this afternoon because we put this wanting to make sure that there was input from each of our schools. That we had information for 25-26, and when people came back today, it was really about saying, we think we're okay. And so because we didn't meet till this afternoon, we wanted to put it in here, and there's nothing that says the board has to adopt tonight. If you choose to ponder it and ask some, or, get your questions, that if you look at it for a day or two, then that's okay. So it's not a requirement that we approve it. We talked about, the desire right now is to have our in-service days on that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the last week of August. Labor Day is early, and so we will start with students again after Labor Day. That's the plan. We've put in, some changes in how we're doing some of our conference days. We've got same days off in terms of when one group of students is out of school, the other groups of students are out of school. So we're honoring the parents in that regard. But we know that the middle school wants to do their conferencing, for instance, on October 12th or October 10th. Elementary doesn't want to do it till after the 30th or 31st because of grading periods and all kinds of things like that. So while middle school folks are doing conferencing here, others will be doing grading and the other work that we have set aside for those days. And so we feel like we kind of got to some of the best of both worlds to be able to try that out. Winter break, or excuse me, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is still a non-contract day. We've discovered that people kind of like having that day to be able to cook, plan, travel, etc. Our winter break and our spring break, Michelle checked line up with, our neighbors and partners. So, we're in the same vein with Corvallis, with OSU, and with others on those dates. The other holidays remain pretty much the same. Again, we put a inclement weather makeup day on what typically has been President's Day. And if we have an inclement weather day earlier in the year, we go to school that day. If we don't have a day out of school, then that becomes a day off. And so, we've toyed with the ideas of trying to get another day in February, to be able to put even a long weekend in February, because it just seems like a long run. But, then it changes when you get out of school and all those other kinds of things. And so we said, this year, let's stay with this, and be able to go in that direction. We have the other day out there, May 22nd. And then our last day with students, we looked at June 11th. And the makeup days in there truly are that, if we need to have makeup days. And really, that's more of a visual image to our families and to our staff that says, if we have a bunch of snow days, please don't plan your vacation to start on Monday, the 15th. And book your airline reservations right on that day if we have to make those up. So if the 11th is the last day for students and we don't have makeup days at the end, that green day, which is the last day for staff, would be on the 12th, and then everybody would be done. And so it doesn't mean that our staff is committed to being there until June 17th. We just want to put the picture in that if makeup days are a part of that, we want that awareness. There was some conversation this afternoon about back to school open house. And we entertained a couple of different options, but because that doesn't impact a school day in what we choose there, and we wanted some more input and feedback from school staff on that it doesn't impact or change the calendar at all. It's just what we do in an evening on one or two of those days. So, questions, comments, thoughts?
What was the thought when you put all the makeup days at the end of the year? If we do have inclement weather, sometime through the year, they miss those days in those trimesters, semesters, whatever, and then you're tacking all the days on the last semester, trimester, whatever. What was the conversation of that, or was there a conversation?
There was conversation, because this is pretty typical in terms of the way we set things up. If we move these makeup days back up into earlier in the year, and we don't need them, of course, that's one thing, but it's always, you can look at the end of the year, which is the real struggle. And the more makeup days we put in here, the longer we have to go. Because this would be a day off unless we have or it would be a day off unless we have an inclement weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we know also, and the reason we didn't jump to 26, 27 right away, and we're coming back around to that, is the date of Labor Day in 26, 27 is late. And so there's the conversation that we've put out there about, do we want to start before Labor Day? Do we want to start after Labor Day? And what does that mean in terms of our finish time in June? We've also talked about, can we look at shuffling some of those makeup days in a different pattern? If we're gonna have to change things or choose to change things in the calendar for 26, 27 anyway. And so it gives us a chance to be able to take a look at that and really put out, what would that look like if we added more makeup days into a different point of the year? How long would that put it out there? We've got most people that have said, if we can really plan to be out in the second week of June, we kind of like that. We really don't want to go as much beyond that, if we don't need to, unless there's snow. And so, that was really the pieces of the conversation there.
Okay.
My children got a calendar out without knowing anything about this, and went and said, if we just went to school on Fridays all day, we could be out of school in May and it wouldn't interfere with our tractor driving time. So my children like to take the winter and cold months and still be at school more and not interfere with their summer activities.
Yeah, but the thing about the Fridays is, the Fridays we have now with students, because they go through a lunchtime, are considered full days for students. And so it wouldn't really add, I mean,
Okay.
it would count as the same day.
Okay, so,
As would
okay, well, I
another,
can go back
so-
and tell them it would shorten
Yeah.
their day.
But it's a nice, it's a nice
They're
plan,
thinking.
it really is.
Yeah.
But it's always been kind of strange to me that when we start the school year in September, we got September, October, and most of November before we get a break. You know, yeah, we've got one holiday in there. But then everybody thinks it's a long time in January, February, and part of March.
Have all those holidays.
Well, no, there's only one holiday in there, you know, in January, and then a possible makeup day in February, but you're still, looks like in class or in school as many days in September, October, November as you are in January, February, March, but everybody thinks it's such a long time before there's a break from January, February, March instead
The
of,
shortest days of the year feel the longest.
yeah.
And also all like the holidays have passed and stuff, so it's like. not
No.
I
looking
don't know,
forward.
we have a lot of days.
There's no stocking to look
Oh, I'm
forward
gonna, I'm just gonna celebrate.
Yeah,
so
it's going back and forth.
But no, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see it, I don't have a problem with it, I'm just kind of making that note that everybody thinks that it's such a long time in January, February, and March than it is from September, October, November.
No, I just think it's because February, the shortest month, it feels like the longest.
Yeah.
month.
But anyhow, that was just,
The 700 days of February.
but
Did we
I don't-
ever have the whole week? I remember that we had the whole week of Thanksgiving week off.
Some schools do.
Some do,
Yeah,
and we've talked about that to be able to, so some schools will do, their parent-teacher conferences in November, so the staff don't necessarily have it all off. But, and some do have it all off, that it's all, holidays. And so it's varied, it's mixed.
okay.
And
I just didn't know if I was dreaming that or.
I appreciated the Monday after being off this year.
Oh,
That was.
After Thanksgiving, and see, that will be the end of the first trimester and will be a grading day, so it will be a
day
day,
after.
in the plan there.
That was very nice. And I also appreciate the calendar putting Halloween on a Friday this year.
so,
And Mike, can you scroll to see April real quick? Is there any? I was wondering about that one inclement weather day right before, because is that the weekend of Memorial Weekend? or is that-
yeah, the 22nd.
So yeah, it'd be ideal to not have a makeup day because there's a lot of travel, but it looks like there's not another spot.
Really,
A
no,
good
Not
day to
really.
make it if we don't need it. We might not need that.
I guess that's a good point. It's a good day to put it there because if you don't need it. All right.
You
I
get a
think
long
It's a day off.
Yeah, we'll go there on that. Okay.
So my question is, do I hear a motion to approve
I
this
truly
calendar?
approve this as it is.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay. I realize it's under strategy and discussion, but we can vote on it, correct?
and that's what I want, yeah, that's what I wanted to put out there, you know, when we did the agenda, we put it strategy and discussion, and after meeting this afternoon, I was kind of like, if you want to move it to an approval phase, let's move it.
Have the days been counted? Because last year we had the issue with the days.
Michelle counted days every which way
There's a
from.
tally on all of them too.
Okay,
Yeah,
all of
so
them.
we're good on days.
Yeah, so, okay. Did somebody move?
I did.
Moved,
And
seconded.
Oh, moved and seconded, okay.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Motion passes 4-0 with one absent. Thank you, Susan, for all your work and everybody else.
Wow, that's a good, it's a good committee.
Board work session agenda.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm putting things together, because the idea of the work session was really to come back in our action plan report and, take a look at, that 3-month horizon. He had approved the superintendent goals and evaluation calendar. How you want to deal with strategic planning, long range, let's see, board members attend OSBA conference, which happened. The LBL Regional Roadshow, the 6-month was evaluate the superintendent. a one-page document that describes the role of the board, begin the strategic planning process of which, my plan was to be able to come with strategic planning information. But it was kind of like, if there are some things specific that you want, in the context of that session, I want to make sure that we're providing what we need. In
I
order to
brought
be able
that
to
up
get to what we
earlier.
need.
I still think we should address, get something,
Okay.
and that could be part of the strategic
Yep.
plan, but something
Yep.
that says what, and Joe kind of alluded more there, but just something in writing.
Yep.
So when this gets handled.
Thanks, Ryan. Anybody else have any suggestions?
It
Addition?
would be nice if Joey could have that kind of one-page, 5-year need, or what you see, I don't know if that's part of our work session, but it's something that we have at a time when we get something like that.
I don't know if he can have that quick. I don't know how,
I
I don't know where he's at in his process.
And we don't necessarily need it detailed out, just say, here's what's coming.
No, but that's what I'm saying though,
Yeah.
is I don't know if he's got that, where.
I
he
would
can-
assume he has that, just knowing.
Well,
what's coming, but I don't
He's
know.
slated in February or March, I think, to do, that we do have one of those months, I think, is a facilities update, and the other month is a technology update. But I'll see what he's got ready, because what I
Yeah.
wanted, the reason we wanted to ask the question is, I want to make sure that the agenda that's put together, gets at maximizing the use of what people want. And so I don't have a problem asking him at all.
Yeah.
To be able to see what he's got.
Remember, reminder to dumb it down.
So
Bullet points only.
point 2 on this 3-month horizon is identifying a consultant to facilitate a strong strategic planning process. Is that something that we are likely to be able to do at our work session next week? Has any research gone into consultant options? Have we determined that that's the path forward?
I don't know that that's the path forward.
Okay,
And I think that that's something that we need to talk about is, do we need somebody in to facilitate the work? Or facilitate the process, or don't we? I did hear from Vince Adams, so OSBA has a proposal kicked back to us to be able to say, this is what we could do for you.
okay,
If we OSBA were to help facilitate the process. The other thing would be dependent upon who we wanted to have facilitate. We could get a hold of somebody from probably COSA, the administrative group, that may have an interest in being able to come join us. I've talked to some of my superintendent companions who have also said that they wouldn't mind being able to do something like that. And so I think that that's gonna be a good part of the conversation to say, do we need it to be facilitated? And if we do, what do we need to look at as a cost break and things like that?
okay.
Any other?
One other
questions?
thing that, it's kind of a second bullet point to this ad work sessions. At the end, the planning special meetings on the calendar for the rest of the year. One thing I've been thinking about is we have these projects or special projects that we work on as a board. It would be really nice if we could get them added to a calendar where we've got deadlines attached to them instead of like. I'm just gonna throw myself under the bus. I'll kick a bucket down the road a little while if I don't have a deadline to be held to. So I'm wondering if like a Google Calendar that we can all share, that we can look up and say, oh yeah, I was supposed to get that done by X time. Is that, we can talk about how to set it up.
Yep.
At the work session. I think that could be really helpful.
Yep.
I'm a visual person, so that always helps me out.
Okay. Any other modifications to it? Question?
Thank you. That just will help with being able to plan appropriately and like I said, maximize time.
Yeah,
Maybe
thank
you and Levi are welcome to
Okay.
be able to participate, and it would be nice to have your voice if it's available for you.
Okay, cool. I will talk to him,
Thank you.
them about that.
Okay. That brings the meeting closure, but before I do that, Michelle, do you want these back to you?
Yes.
Okay, so we can take these and pass them down there. So that you can have them back. You're looking for this one.
No.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And we can probably go back to this here for a second, the, liaison role. I want to visit that. Because I am not gonna be running for the board next year. I chose not to, run for the board.
I think you've put in your time.
Well,
I think you're allowed to step down. if you
with,
like.
with some of the issues that have happened this last year in the family, it's been a rough year. So I've decided to step away from some things and this is one of them that is gonna be done. I've had several conversations with Cindy about it. She says, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." You know,
You're ready.
yeah. Last time I left it open, you know, when I left the board that I could come back. I chose, you know, after hearing public comment last time, I came back for one more term. Now with, like I say, with things that's happened in a personal life and whatnot, you know, all the things that's been going on, we just decided that it's time. So that leaves the biggest one here on this is the PEA licensed staff negotiations. We'll have to have somebody else volunteer for that. And, you know, I don't know what Joe's plans are
Right.
for if he's gonna run or not. So we'll have to probably pick this up. We might put this on the special set, on the
Yep.
work session.
Okay.
So that, you know, if he is gonna run and he wants to be part of the negotiations, you know, he can do that. But like Aaron stated earlier, there's no guarantee that just because you run, you're gonna get elected, so. You know, leaves it up in the air, but the rest of these pretty much are done at the end of this year. But I don't, you know, it would be nice if negotiations were done at the end of the year, but you know.
Yeah, let's make that a
Stranger things have
goal.
happened, I suppose, so, but anyhow, that's why I would like to withdraw from, the PEA license negotiations.
With that, Rick, I think that the school district owes you a great big thank you.
They don't owe me anything.
No, well, hear me out. For your many years of volunteerism and your many years of caring for the kids in our district. I think that you are entitled to it. Thank you. So on behalf of everybody, thank you.
Agree.
Thank you.
He has to put up with us for,
Oh, I know. He's not going, oh, I know.
I'm not out of here yet,
actually, you have to put up with us for a lot longer than the rest of your term.
so, but yeah, I just wanted to throw
You
that
know
out
where
there
you
at this
live.
time of year, because I know it's gonna open up for whoever wants to run to sign up to run, and I don't wanna leave it hanging till the last minute,
Right.
and then, you know, maybe somebody that thought they might wanna run decides not to, and then, you know, so now there's plenty of notification and people can do whatever they wanna do.
Yeah.
So, that being said, we'll go on to, next meeting agenda items is the auditor's presentation, KVCS annual report, 25-26 calendar, which we can take off of that. Along with academy presentation and the license renewals.
And I'd just like to add in the KVCS annual report. I heard from Mark Hazelton and Diana Barnhart that they will have a report to us by the end of February. They would like to share in March.
Okay,
So that's,
so that goes from February to March.
right.
Okay,
And then the license renewals we can do in March because.
yeah,
our
because
meeting
we're ahead
happens
of
before-
it, like, better than we have been
Right.
before.
And so the school stuff, Philomath Academy will be in that slot for presentation. The auditors will be here. And so those were the updates I had.
Okay, so the license renewals, my question on that is, would you be ready to do that in February, or do you need the extra time into March to, put all that together?
Let me find out.
Okay. I mean, if we could do it in February, is there a problem with doing it in
No,
February?
there's no problem with doing it.
Yeah, so.
So can you clarify for Ryan and I, what are the licensed renewals? What are we talking about?
We have an obligation for licensed staff, meaning our PEA licensed group, which is teachers and counselors, and our administrators to be able to put forward by March 15th, no later than March 15th of each year, those who will be renewed and those who will not be renewed.
Thank you.
And so that's just, it's a matter of,
Okay.
we have to, and putting that forward.
Thank you.
Good question.
Okay. Board, thanks.
Thanks for coming back after break.
Never
ran away.
Well, I'd like to, once again, thank all the staff, because it takes all the staff to make this work. Congratulations to the basketball teams that went to Alaska, did very well up there in that tournament. And I think that everybody got the email with the sportsmanship.
Yes,
You know,
that was awesome.
That was, I mean, that's a feather in the cap to both of those teams and everybody associated with it that traveled with them
Absolutely.
to have the superintendent of that school district congratulate them for their sportsmanship.
Absolutely.
I thought it was awesome to get that
Yeah, just
in
for
that email.
Yeah,
the audience and community, I received a letter from the superintendent in Ketchikan. That was very complimentary of our students, and that's what I shared with board members. For their classiness, the way they represented Philomath, the way that they represented the sport of basketball and all. I mean, it was just a really, really nice thing that I forwarded to our board members and also forwarded to Mike Hood, the athletic director, and our basketball coaches at the high school. It just, you don't often get things like that. And it was just really, really nice.
to me, that was at least as big a win as the final scores.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really and truly.
Those are the lessons
You
that
know?
sports are.
Yeah,
supposed to
right,
be
yep.
teaching our kids,
Right.
right? So, yeah,
And I'd
it's
also like
wonderful.
to thank all of the staff that worked over the break time to get us prepared to start the new year.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I always like to thank the performing arts people, but the winter band concert for the middle school was fantastic. It was very fun. I enjoyed myself. So thanks to everyone involved in getting that out the door, including all of the fantastically talented musicians who were all playing the same songs this year. That is not always the case, as anyone who's been in band before knows. I was really impressed. And actually, when they don't play the same song, it's my favorite. But it didn't happen. And also for the middle school play that, as Susan mentioned earlier, the practices have kicked off. I have a kid who has been coming home after practice every day, exhausted and excited and happy. And I am deeply appreciative of that because 8th graders aren't always easy to please. So they're doing an excellent job with the program there, as always.
So I would like to echo what Rick said, thanking the faculty and staff that saw us through that big conversion on the telephone system. I also want to say I went to that concert. I went to every winter concert in the district. And I was so impressed. Man, we have some talented people. This is one of them.
Absolutely.
She's amazing.
Appreciate it.
Oh, she's amazing,
Been
but
watching
the
that.
programs were
Thank you.
so fun and so great. And especially with the younger ones, I found myself sitting there with a silly grin on my face, watching the whole thing because it was so entertaining. And I just want to thank everybody at every school that was involved in those because, oh man, well played.
Did you notice in the sixth grade one that somebody stole somebody's line? And she was not happy.
Yes, I did. She was not happy at all. But that's part of the entertainment value. No, they were really done well. They were done very, very well. Yeah, so again, thank you to everybody that was involved in the winter programs because that was fun.
Okay, is there any board requests? Hearing none? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Alright.
Yeah, well deserved.
Thank you.
I see you going again, Glenda.
Yeah, the board work section. Okay.
But.
Didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, and that's okay, I just, it's just, if it was possible.
Yeah.
Like,